Okay, ready.
Very good.
I'm going to take this down for a minute. Alex, should I get a Zoom link for the meeting, for the thing tonight?
Yes, you just register on our website.
I registered.
Oh, yeah. You should have received a Zoom link.
Oh, I'll check.
Check your spam email just in case.
Yeah, that may be where it went. Yeah.
Yeah, let me know, okay?
It's really interesting because I walk Palo Corona usually once a week at least. So
it should be a really good talk. Definitely check your spam and email me if you don't have it, okay?
Okay.
I'm assuming we'll be done by 10 or 10:15. I have a 10:30 just to let you know, Ashley, okay?
Yeah, I anticipate that we'll be done by then.
Okay.
Hello, Ashley.
Hi, Phil. How are you?
Fine, you?
Just fine.
Oh.
We'll just wait a couple more minutes, see if anybody else dials in.
You were also quiet. I was convinced I had an audio problem. It was like, and then I heard a piece of paper turn. So Susan, thank you for turning that page and making.
Okay, I print out. I'll take this off. I print out the. I read the thing online and then Leslie usually prints it out for me because it's a lot of print. So I was just looking it over again.
Good morning. This is Tara.
Good morning, Tara.
Gee, Tara, this morning you look awfully like a telephone. Oh, and you just turned green, a green telephone.
I never know how those things look. At least I'm not a cat. Have you guys seen the video of the attorney who makes an appearance at a Texas court, and he's like, he can't figure out how to turn off the filter that's making him look like a cat on Zoom. Oh, it's hilarious.
So we're just waiting for John. I thought I saw him in the meeting earlier, but he disappeared, and I don't have any reason to think that he's not coming. I haven't heard from him otherwise.
Well, let's, if you think you saw him before, let's just wait another 2 minutes and then we'll see if he dials back in, then we'll get started.
We have further evidence this morning that Zoom has taken over the world. Even Carmel is using Zoom now. It found it all the way to the wilderness in Carmel.
Sure did.
I think the interesting thing is that Zoom has become, you know how like Xerox became a verb?
Yep.
Right. So Zoom's become a verb. It doesn't actually matter if you're using the Zoom platform. It means kind of a video meeting, right? I'm Zooming today at 3 or whatever.
Yeah. And it became a verb much faster than any, and in fact, it's a verb and a noun or whatever, and became part of the lexicon much faster than any of those other cases.
I'm sure.
Okay, so it's 5 after. I'm sorry, were you about to say, somebody about to say something?
Yeah, this is Leslie. John just emailed me. He was having trouble getting on Zoom, so I just sent him the call-in number. So if you want to give it another couple minutes and see if he can get it.
Okay.
I would suggest that 5 minutes delay is the breaking point at which you move ahead anyway, at least with the formal part of opening the meeting.
Well, if he just emailed in, let's just give him another minute.
You're such a nice guy.
Well, we do the roll call up front, so you want folks that are voting to be counted in the roll call. So another thought. Okay, we'll go ahead and call to order and have a roll call.
John Krischer.
Here.
John McDougall. Oh,
Here.
he's here. Okay. John McDougall.
Here.
Susan Murphy.
Here.
Bill Pardue.
Here.
Tara Twomey.
Here.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any public appearances? Anybody on the line? All right. Announcements from the trustees.
We're still trying to find a place for a book sale. We're working on it. We've closed the book room for now because we have too many books and no place to have the sale. If we're not able to have the sale this year, we will get humidifiers and keep the books safe. And we're going to start having a table at the Carmel Farmers Market starting tomorrow, and we will sell books and give out information there.
Okay. Thank you. Any other announcements from the trustees? Okay, announcements from the library director.
Announcements from me. So we are proceeding with plans to figure out how to open library buildings with the current staff that we have. We are working with City Hall on that. They're also working on prioritizing opening the City Hall facility to potentially restore public meetings in person. That'll be forthcoming. I do not have dates for any of this. And library staff are also looking at a way to expand what we're doing outside with curbside in the meantime. Since our weather, especially today, is so lovely, we've got some ideas about what we could do. So we're working on all of the logistics for those things, so stay tuned.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on to receive a report from the Carmel Library Foundation on recent activities.
Morning, everyone. I'm excited to report that our annual event was very well attended and we had a record sponsorship. And while our numbers aren't finalized just yet, we raised over $100,000. So it's looking closer to maybe 110,000, somewhere in that vicinity. So we're really excited about that. And our featured speaker, Douglas Brinkley, had a really great experience and he's offered to come back in 2022 in June to do another talk on a book that he will have published in May. So it went really well, and he's also offered to help us field new speakers, and it was a really great connection. And hope you had fun if you were in attendance. And so that's that. The Sterling Circle reception that typically takes place in June will again be held, I was going to say virtually, but we're not going to hold a virtual reception. We're going to be sending out gifts, a book of poetry with some handwritten letters in acknowledgement of their dedication to the library and the Library Foundation in lieu of gathering in person. And tonight marks our last program of the season. I hope you come. It's at 7 p.m. online, and you can register online. It's called Birds, Bees, and Bob Dylan. And we have a recommended speaker from one of our past presidents who heard him speak about the repurposing of land use on the Monterey Peninsula. So anyone who's interested in the environment or in the land and how we're utilizing the land, I think would really enjoy this talk. And we are down one social media manager. So we're looking for a new social media manager. And we received a grant of $15,000, which is a grant that we apply for every year from the Barnett Siegel Trust. So we're really excited about that they've come through this year with that. And we're looking at new ways to reach out to all of the new residents who are moving into Carmel. And so we're going to be working on that. Ashley and I are still working on the outdoor project from Monterey County Gives program that we had a fundraising endeavor for last winter. And that's in progress. And I think that's what I have so far.
Oh. Well, thank you, and congratulations on being able to put together the fundraiser for this year, and how successful it was, and with the contacts you're getting for the future.
Thank you.
We look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Before we move on, do any of the other trustees have any questions for Alexander?
I would just echo your congratulations, particularly relative to the event. I thought it was extremely well done. And the fact that you've got your speaker, Brinkley, into your web is exciting.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's support on this. I know many of you attended and got the word out, so thank you so much.
Okay, on to item number 4, approval of the minutes from the February 24th, 2020 meeting.
I would move the minutes be approved as written.
I second it.
Okay. Have the roll call?
Krischer,
Yes.
McDougall,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Pardue,
Yes.
Twomey.
Yes.
Approved. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to the receive the librarian's report for February and March 2021.
So for February and for March, we saw a slight dip for February in our circulation totals for hard copy materials. That picked back up again in March. February is a shorter month, and I think we had a 3-day weekend that weekend, which always slows things down for us. We saw an increase in the month of March in our electronic checkouts, and continue to see people using both of our services, an increase in both areas. Anecdotally, the word seems to be getting out through the parent and school community about the surprise bags that we put through. So we're seeing an increase in requests for surprise bags amongst parents who, of course, aren't able to come in and browse our collection. So that's great to see that happening. I don't have any other items of note. I've just been keeping track of, I mean, the things that jump out the most to me are where are we in terms of circulation. We're steady on the number of card holders that we have and those increases. We of course don't have any volunteer hours to record at this time. So I do have the ask into City Hall about when we can ask for volunteers to come back and do what they did before, which is some of the minimal processing and tech services and shelving at both the main library and the park branch. So hopefully that will be something that can happen and move forward. But otherwise, that is my report. And I did check, I keep checking, the state library still has not released the overall statistics since I last submitted the state librarian's report. So I don't have a larger report out for you there quite yet, but I will keep checking in with the state.
Okay. And that covered both February and March?
It covers February and March, yes.
Okay. Do any of the trustees have any questions? Comments?
You said you thought word was getting out on surprise bags, or it could just simply be the level of desperation at that point was increasing.
It could be. Could very well be. We've had, we conglomerated all of the comments that we've gotten for all of our sheets that we've done, whether you're submitting a surprise bag or a whole request for a curbside appointment. And I was reviewing them yesterday, and I did see in there a handful of parents who are homeschooling their kids and have been using the library heavily for that purpose. So that's great.
When we weren't shut down, were homeschooling parents using the library physically to bring their kids in and whatnot?
Yeah. So we've seen, there's one family in particular that I was working with that were submitting some purchase suggestions that were actually great, nonfiction books. So we ended up rounding out that section of the collection a little bit more. And it's great to be able to be responsive to their requests.
Homeschooling parents like to sort of group together to do things. Is that something that's likely to happen in our new room? Or do we want to encourage? Do we encourage that, or do we just simply allow it to happen if it happens? Or
if it happens, it happens. I mean, it's kind of a built-in thing I see happening after our story times with that. And then I do see. I mean, we can tell what's going on in terms of curriculum types of things. When you see multiple parents, we've all moved on to the ocean now. And before that, we were working on fall leaves, so you can see who's doing those types of things. As for whether or not they built a network outside of the library, I'm not sure. But it would be something that we could do in the future to invite them to, yes, use the new meeting room, use the space at in-use services to group together.
Okay, any questions from any of the other trustees? All right. Okay, so thank you, Ashley. Look forward to seeing the April report, because that's really the first one that's going to be more apples to apples with reduced operations for the whole month, yeah. For both years, last year and this year. So it should be interesting.
It will be.
Okay, on to item number 6, receive the treasurer's report and approve the check register for February and March 2021.
Are you doing this, Ashley, or am I doing this?
I was going to let you introduce it, and then I will field any questions.
I'm not sure who's in charge here. Can somebody allow me to share screen? Can everybody see that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, not the people on the phone, but
Well, not those of us on the phone, but it's fine. We can follow along.
Okay, so most of it, this is just a prop for me talking. I'll just go through. In the financial report, you got numbers 1 through 25 or whatever comments. I just picked out a few comments. A reminder that pro forma column, the funds from the foundation don't necessarily come consistent with our budget timing, and so I create a column that says, "What if they did come?" Because that's the only. Otherwise, you're dealing in going to the bottom line and doing the subtraction or addition all the time. So this one says, "Let's pretend it came in," and that gives us a better view. So not at all a problem, just useful information. Number 2 there in green, in spite of the fact that in spite of COVID, $7,500 from Friends of the Library. Thank you, Susan. In terms of administration, we've spent so far this year $25,000 instead of the budget $36,000. And my comment was not in the room where it happens. Under maintenance contracts, we've spent $5,000 less than the budget. And I only put a comment of be careful. There are things that we need that we have planned maintenance for, but because of COVID and not being used, the maintenance I assume is being put off. There's some, it's like my BMW that's sitting in the parking lot right now, where you leave it sitting long enough and the battery runs out. Now you've got a different problem. You're spending more to get it fixed than you would have to do the maintenance. I highlighted ZipBooks. ZipBooks is higher. That's, as Phil, I think, has used the term before. It's crowdsourcing of our library content, but nobody should be surprised that ZipBooks are more common in this situation. The little box that I have there says that the other thing that's interesting is. Obviously, we're spending less money on hard copy, $14,000 year to date, less than budget. But in return, even though electronic copies of things are more expensive, we're only $12,000 over budget. So, pardon me, we're only $2,000 over budget. So our net saving here is, and it's not really a saving, but our net under budget is $12,000. So we're not being punished by being in a totally electronic area. The one thing that I didn't highlight here is that, in fact, under kids collection, Ashley has spent $15,000 against a budget of $10,000. So she should get with a wet noodle or something. But as she's explained before, what they're doing is substantially, if not totally, refreshing the kids' collection. And I think that's been a really valuable use of the time. Ashley mentioned homeschooling, but I think the other thing that's interesting is, and I put in that it was good news, although adult programs, teen programs, kid programs, obviously we're not doing any of those things. The student educator program, we're over budget on that, which means the library is being used for education purposes, and I think that's great. Local history programs were also below budget, but the fact that there's any local history program spending at all, I think, is really great. And then I did change this last item here, that it is we're $36,000 under budget. In the note I sent out, it says the COVID effect. I changed that to put in it's COVID and management, because I think we need to recognize that Leslie and her team aren't just suffering from, aren't just taking advantage of the budget does not just reflect the COVID thing. It reflects the fact that I think they're doing a really good job managing under difficult circumstance. And that's my input. Ashley, if you want to add anything.
So just to be clear, there were two different reports in here for two different months, and trying to equate, what you have on your screen to what's in our packet, because we have folks that can't see your screen. You're on page 22 and 23 of our packet, right? The one that's July 20th through March 2021.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just, for those just on the phone, you just walk through that sheet, and the numbers corresponded to his comments on the right-hand side.
Oh, I'm watching it online right now.
Okay, good.
I'm watching on my computer.
I think that just means Tara is the one that can't see.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Thanks, Tara. And because all of this is year to date, it's the most recent month. I didn't go back and put up 2 months because doing two months one after the other makes no sense. In fact, we have the analysis. The koala bear there can provide it if necessary.
Okay, so are there any questions from the trustees?
I have one question. On the maintenance, do you think maybe the machines should be checked out, like the printers and the self-checkout things? Can they be serviced even though they're not being used to make sure they're okay?
Yeah, so pre-pandemic, we actually had both of our self-check machines are, I think, 15 years old at this point. So we were due for replacements for both of those machines. Pre-pandemic, one of them had just stopped working. That was about a month before the one at the main just went kaput. So we have one working machine at the park branch. And then I've already coordinated with IT to start doing updates to the public computers at in both buildings, and to restore some of the software that contracts that I've let lapse since we haven't been using Envisionware and Deep Freeze on our computers. So trying to figure that piece of it out. The staff computers and everything else are fine. And I think everywhere else in the library we're good, and Public Works has been keeping up on everything. It's our IT equipment at this point that has, in some cases, not been used.
Thank you very much.
So we budgeted for the replacement machines, Ashley, for the checkout?
We did budget. We did not budget for the replacement machines. And that's something I'm going to be looking at in the upcoming fiscal year budget when I bring you something next month. In the interim, we did figure out, I mean, there's all different kinds of machines and all different kinds of modules. You've probably seen ours. They're big and heavy, and they've got the thumper for desensitizing books. There's ones that are smaller in footprint, and then you can make it as simple as, hey, we've got an extra computer. We can set parameters on Koha and set up a zapper and just do self-check that way. It doesn't need to be a full-on machine, because that's essentially what's in those big boxes is a CPU and a monitor.
Right. So aren't our books have little things in them that the sensors can track when you walk out the door, so that you can tell if somebody hasn't checked out a book and is trying to walk out the front door?
Yes.
And
so,
and how do these different solutions, do they take care of that, or are we moving away from that for our inventory control?
We've been moving away from that from inventory control. So tattle taping, so RFID has supplanted the type of security tape we've done and barcoding. So I've been looking at transitioning us to RFID in the future. Monterey just did a project while they've been closed to their board released some funds, and they did an RFID project. It's a large undertaking because you're going through and replacing all of the barcodes. So we aren't we are not there yet. We were, it was something that I had planned on doing after the retirement and replacement of Grace and Jean's position, because again, it's a large undertaking with staff in an open library. And in some cases, the library directors I talked to who had done it pre-pandemic said it took them a good 6 months to a year to get everything converted over. So, so that being said, RFID is the goal. We are no longer, we have not been tattle taping because that kept the cost down for processing. I think it was over 25 cents, maybe as much as 50 cents per book for the tattle tape. And our security gates, in every library I've worked at, especially the older ones, aren't great. I mean, your keys can set them off, or something from a different store can set them off. So they're weirdly calibrated. So anyway, it was time for us to replace everything, and we haven't been tattle taping. So if we went to a model where we're using just a basic CPU setup with a mouse and a barcode scanner, we would be just fine.
Okay, because we're not using the tattle tape anyway.
Nope, we're not.
Okay.
Sorry, it's a lot. Yes, I love my context, and I have lots of thoughts about tattle tape.
Okay. All right, understand. Look forward to hearing about the solutions you come up with for the future. Okay, any more questions from the trustees, either on the treasurer's report or the tattle taping machine replacement?
Ashley, do you have any more comments on the treasurer's report?
No, just I will be speaking at the next meeting to our line item for zip books and how we're going to be handling that for the next fiscal year. So we've got some ideas about how to do that and meet our purchase suggestion needs.
So
This is Tara. I don't know if this is Tara. I don't know if this is kind of budget related. Well, it is budget related, but I'm not sure if this is the right place for it. So if it's not, just let me know. So Ashley, I think council approved kind of a very small list of capital projects for the next year, right? None of which involve the library. They approved a very long list of capital improvement projects to go to the planning commission to be reviewed to see that they were in compliance with our general plan. And then they will come back at a future date and peel some of those off because they can't afford all of them. So that will be happening at a future meeting. And which of those are library? What do we have library projects on that list?
Yes. So the painting and carpeting at the main, and that painting is both interior painting and exterior painting. Master plan for both buildings, and then the Devendorf Park Plaza project, which would extend Devendorf Park to the doors of the park branch. Okay. Okay. For some reason, I thought there were just a limited number of projects that were approved, but maybe there's no, nothing's been formally approved. They just sent all of the items to the planning commission to make sure they were in line with the general plan before they made any decisions.
Okay. Thank you.
So on that same subject, thanks, Tara. The council will approve or disapprove any capital items, and the painting and carpeting, I think, have been items that have been delayed for the last 25 years or something. Some ridiculous number. I don't know how many years it is. But the other issue, when I look at a budget and a financial report like this, I'm used to seeing staffing being a huge portion of the budget. We don't have that here because we're sort of a split family here between the foundation and the city. So the staffing is not really visible to us. Maybe it should be. But I also know that as council looks at capital, they're going to be looking at expenses. Expenses implies staffing, and I have a general concern that if the council doesn't like capital expenditures for the library, that they may not like staffing expenditures. And I think as trustees, relative to the quality and sustainability and image of the library, we all need to be aware of that. I think that I would like, with agreement from Phil, the chairman, because I'm only the treasurer here, the ability to talk to the trustees and collaborate maybe with Alex relative to, so considering this circumstance, and considering the fact that one thing I've heard is the council thinks that nobody likes the library because nobody shows up at council meetings to defend the library, whether we need to be aware of and potentially proactive relative to speaking out on the library's behalf. I'm not suggesting any immediate action right now. I just like to say I think we need to be aware and think about what we need to do. I did have a brief conversation with Susan about the farmers market, and even using her table to promote the library as well as using her table to sell books, I think is the kind of thing we need to be thinking about.
So we have done an extensive community reach out, strategic reach out. And I think, Ashley, when did you finish that up? A year ago or so? Or
Yes.
To try to promote the library through. Do you get, and then through the pandemic, Ashley was able to defend most of her positions, not the volunteer positions, but the full-time paid positions. I think you may have lost some of the part-time folks, Ashley. Is that what happened?
Yeah, part-time folks to layoffs, and then I had 3 retirements for 3 full-time positions.
And do you sense that you don't have the full support of the city council?
I think that the city council has got a lot in front of it in terms of capital projects, in addition to staffing in other departments that was lost because of the pandemic or positions that were unfilled at the start of the pandemic. So there's a lot going on, and the council's going to have some difficult decisions to make. And I think that staffing is always, it's an expenditure. We were going into some lean years with the cost of the CalPERS, our CalPERS liability. So pre-pandemic, if the pandemic had never happened, we were already looking at belt tightening and doing budget cuts. The previous year to the pandemic, we'd done a 5% cut. So 5% I cut from my operations budget from the community activities department. So the council's going to be looking at everything, and their reluctance to cut anything before sending the capital improvement projects to the Planning Commission is a good indicator. I think that they're very focused on, we lost a whole year of capital work, that they'll be really looking at those capital projects. And the only trade-off there, because we do run a lean organization as staff. And my concern is, yes, that we've been doing a good job of running the libraries while closed, but that they will be reluctant to bring some of our staff back.
I guess the question I would ask is, with the staff that you have today, how successful would you be to opening the library doors?
By my reckoning and figuring, if we were to open the library doors, with the current COVID protocols, we could open 4 hours per week in each building. And that's, again, with the COVID protocols that we would need to enforce, having people come in and fill out an attestation form, just like you do at the doctors, let a certain number of people browse, make sure somebody's there to check in, check out, and then have another person on the end of the door. So it's an increased need for staff to do that, and we would not be able to maintain curbside services at the same time. Curbside is labor intensive, and then we still have all of the ordering and everything else we're doing to get books from one place to another. So 4 hours per week in each building right now with the 4 people that we have. And that's fingers crossed that nobody is, people do take time off and vacation, which I'm strongly in favor of, but also people get sick or have dentist appointments or things like that. And that does impact humans being humans, impacts how we're able to provide our service.
And Don, I know we talked about the 17th, but actually it's coming up the meeting and the City Hall meeting this Tuesday, May 4th. So if we want to get people involved, we need to do it ASAP. And I think if we can get people from the Library Foundation also to advocate for the library and for more staffing at the City Council meeting, particularly people who live in Carmel itself, would probably be helpful.
And that's really the critical thing. People that actually live in Carmel-by-the-Sea themselves. So if you look at the usage or the circulation by borrowers, the county looks like it's about 3 times the circulation by borrowers than the Carmel-by-the-Sea themselves. And so how do you go to a city council and advocate for a library when most of the people using it are from the county, which is interesting, but may not be compelling if you're worried about the capital improvements to your city and you're a tourist city and you want to bring people in. So the question is from the outreach that we've done, how do we approach the Carmel-by-the-Sea residents to have them go to the council to say why it's important to them? And we've had, and we also have the MOU question that's outstanding, or how to approach that. And that was the where they divvied it up. What was it before this last MOU? Who did most of the maintenance? Was it the foundation or was it the city there, Ashley?
For the maintenance of the building?
Yeah, I mean, before, how did it work? I mean, was the city providing most of the funds?
The city was responsible for everything.
Okay, and so the foundation took over some of it.
Yeah, the city was responsible for most of it, but at one point in the 80s, 70s and 80s, the library was part of the county library system. So some of the operating funds were coming from there. And then it became ineffective cost-wise to be a part. It was going to be more expensive to be a part of the county than it was to be on our own. And but the city at the same time was reluctant to contribute anything towards operations at that time. So, and that's when the foundation was formed to support our operating budget. And I will make note too that I've spoken with other library directors in the area, and I do have, as part of the COCA consortium project that we've been working on, have done some research into this question of who's serving who in which city, and what is the breakdown per population. So we're talking, one tow out of the 1 square mile into Carmel Woods and that neighborhood, and or further abroad. And so I've got some graphs where, what Monterey Publix and Pacific Grove's numbers look like in terms of who's borrowing what from where, and what our percentages look like. And it's pretty even. It balances out. We've got people who are in Carmel who do use the Monterey Public Library, Pacific Grove Library, in addition to our library. So anyway.
I think the other question, when you look at your staffing, how much incremental staffing is because users are coming from outside the city? There's a base level of what you have to have just to have a library in Carmel. And surely we don't want to support, let's just stop the library because people from outside the city are using it. There's just a minimum level that you have to have that buys books, that does all of the things that need to be done, and just your presence there 8 hours a day or whatever it is. It's not clear to me that we're doubling the staff requirements because people from outside the city are using the library.
Well, Donna, if I think you step back and you look at your footprint that you have to manage dictates the number of people that you need to enforce the COVID. So if you want Park Branch only, that's one set. If you want the main library, that's one set. If you want both, that's another set. And then it's based on how many hours you're open. I'm not sure that the throughput, the number of patrons you get over the average hour it's really that sensitive to that. It's really, can you man the desk? Can you keep it clean,
Right.
whether you have 3 patrons or 5 coming through?
Right.
And so you're left with the question of how big do you want the footprint of the library to be? And I think that we have a good footprint to now, and the way it's set up with the local history in the children's library, the park branch, and then the main library is a great setup. So the question is how do you articulate that and then defend it to the city council and make sure it's maintained going forward?
Yeah,
and that you can staff
clearly the 2 issues. One is staffing and one is maintenance.
Right. So where do you want to go with this, Don?
And when you're looking at people from the county using the library, you have to realize that a number of us, the city limits are pretty small, and a number of us have Carmel addresses. And of course, use the library because it's right there. But we don't live in the city limits. And I know, Phil, you're one and I'm one we have a Carmel address, but we're not in the city limits. So that's, right. I think that's a lot of your users. If you look at the number of people who have Carmel addresses in the area and are not really part of the city, that's another, another problem, I guess.
Well, it's a challenge, absolutely. But what's the decision timeline for the city, and what do we need to do to articulate our position?
Well, I think if Susan's right relative to timeline, and the meeting is next Tuesday, my immediate reaction is to suggest 2 things. One is encourage people to write to City Council and remind them of the importance of the library. Number 1. Number 2, I would say that it would be useful for the trustees to show up at the Zoom council meeting, not necessarily to speak, but just simply to be present and have one speaker just say, "I'm here with my colleagues because we're interested in understanding and supporting the importance of the library." I think just visibility that somebody's watching is important.
Okay, fair enough.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
In response to what you said about the demographics for the library, obviously I echo what Susan said. I am also I'm in the county, and so I understand that demographic, but also couldn't we also approach it that our library is getting a lot of use from people all over the county?
Lost your audio.
I'm sorry? It's a star rate. I mean, it's an exceptional library, and isn't Carmel, trying to attract a world-class audience to come and visit Carmel and be tourists here? I mean, I don't think we should have to apologize for the fact that people are coming from all over to our library. It's a historic library. There's only 3 tourist areas in town: the Mission, Sunset, and the library, for people to actually see true Carmel heritage. So, I mean, I feel like we shouldn't, see that as a negative, I guess is what I'm saying. It's a tribute to the library that it does such a great job in providing to the whole county. And I understand Carmel is, Carmel centric, but as Susan pointed out, I mean, with absentee homeowners, it leaves you with, 2,200 people or 2,200 residents. So, I mean, I think that we should use that as a positive. Anyway.
Right. No, I would not disagree at all. The question is how do you relate that to the city council in a way in which it resonates with them, so you end up getting the response that you desire. And I do not have any experience with the Carmel City Council. I'm really relying on Ashley, Don, Tara, and then John to, if they have any experience, for recommendations on what we should do. And, showing up for the meeting and the Zoom council meeting and articulating a position is great, but you still have to have a message that resonates.
So, bye, Mary. So I think right, a couple of issues. One is, I think we're at the stage where a simple message of awareness and interest is probably the best we can do in terms of the people coming from outside. I guess as I think about that, if somebody's coming to the car show and going to buy coffee or go into a shop and buy a pair of cowboy boots or whatever, what makes the person who's coming to use the library less likely to buy a cup of coffee or a pair of cowboy boots in Carmel? It would seem to me that the argument that we're a tourist town, we might change that to we're a visitor town, and people come to visit the car show, and people come to visit the beach, and people come to visit the library. I'm not sure I'd want to make that argument in public in the short term, but.
Okay. And I know we still need a couple voices out there we need to hear from, but I'd like to throw out another question. If this is a challenging year, the budgets are down, not as down maybe as much as they thought, but it's coming back up. And then which is more important to us? More employees for the library or painting and carpeting?
I think you have to increase your staff so you can open the library up and make it open. On another point, most of your children and your kids that go to the library live in the county because the city itself is, I've heard, last 6% second homeowners. And most of the kids, if you look, live up in the woods and up the surrounding areas of Carmel. I don't think there's a great majority living in the city itself. That's just a comment I'd have.
I think from my perspective, bringing staff back is more important than painting and carpeting at the main. That can wait. It has waited. The exterior painting at the main, I do have concerns about with the eaves. When I last spoke with our project manager right before the start of the pandemic, we were discussing the maintenance that needed to happen on those. And that is exactly what we were talking about before with the upkeep of our maintenance contracts, that the painting and carpeting inside the main could wait. The exterior paint I have concerns about. So yeah. That's
Wasn't there a surplus mentioned at the last meeting, a large surplus?
Yes, there is a surplus this fiscal year of just over $2 million. That's what they're anticipating for this fiscal year.
And has that already been allocated?
It has, some of it has been allocated, but not all of it has been allocated, and that is a one-time surplus.
Mm-hmm.
We only want to paint the building one time.
True.
Right. Are we going to be receiving any of that surplus?
Tara, do you have, I think Phil was suggesting maybe we should hear from Tara.
I don't have any more information. I would agree with Ashley that staffing, and John, that staffing is critical. I think if there, I think we have a historic building. If there's something on that needs to be done to make sure that we're not, the worry about buildings is if you actually don't maintain them, then your problem gets worse, right? And so there's a certain level of maintenance that absolutely needs to happen. So if painting the exterior of the building is one of those things, then, I can certainly see kind of adding that to the priority list. But beyond that, it seems to me like staffing really needs to be the critical ask.
Well, to me, it's a little difficult to compare staffing and capital. They're not the same kind of money. There's still money. There's no question about that.
Well, I was always going to say is there's only one budget that the city has, and they'll divide it up between labor and maintenance. And at the end of the day, we can't hire another body through the foundation. We may be able, or we may decide to, or whatever, make a few cosmetic improvements if required, but we can't hire people and then the fundamental maintenance of the building to keep it from falling down, like painting the eaves and painting the outside, really is a city thing that I think that we should be focusing on. And if we're going to go to the city council, we should be focused on our priorities, which would be, keeping the building standing and then hiring more people to open up access to the building. Because if you don't have more people, it really doesn't matter if you paint or carpet, because people aren't getting in.
Or we make sure, at least with an initial shot, that the library is an asset that is constituted of the building and the people. I'm not sure that we need to go for next Tuesday and say, give us money for this in lieu of that or whatever, as opposed to, please understand that you have an asset here, a valuable asset to the city that is constituted of the librarians that run it and the building that they work in. We don't necessarily have to. At some point, Phil, I think you're right that we may need to differentiate and ask the question of, okay, they're going to give us $1. What do we spend it on? But in the short term, I think we just need to remind them what a valuable asset the library is, and the partnership that they have entered into with the foundation as an example, that this isn't just a standalone thing. This is part of a very generous partnership on the part of the foundation.
Do we know now if there are going to be staffing the rest of the departments, or how they're going to be? Because I know in the MOA it states that the library has to be in line with that, at least.
Ashley, I think that question's for you, because I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah.
Would you ask it again, Alex? I missed the first part of it.
Yeah, do we know, I know in the MOA it states that that the city needs to staff, there has to be an equivalency across the board with all the other departments. You took a 60% cut. The other departments, I don't think, took that. So are they going to raise it up in the same percentage according to the MOA?
That is the question. That is the question.
And is this next city council meeting, are they finalizing?
No, they're not finalizing anything. June is the target date for finalizing the budget. This is the preliminary review of the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021-22. They have previously looked at capital projects and then referred those to the Planning Commission. And this will be the first look at the operations budget this next Tuesday, which will include staffing requested by each department and operations budget. The operations budget won't be included in that, of course. That's done through Steve, but the operations budget for the other departments.
Ashley, do you want our support in the way of letters and people coming to the meeting, or would you rather not? That's also up to you.
I think I'd like to see what direction the city council takes and what path they want to go in on next Tuesday, knowing the budget request that I asked for. But I do think it is important that the Board of Trustees attends, if possible, and listens in to see where the council goes with their deliberations.
Okay, fair enough.
I will ask everybody on our board to attend.
Yep. So can you get me or where can I find the invite to that council meeting, Ashley?
That will be going out this week, and as soon as it goes out, I'll ask Leslie to send it to all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds great. All right, so we're almost out of time, but would like to finish up the treasurer's report. We also have the check register. Any questions on the check register for February and March? And if there are no questions, I need a.
I move the check register be approved.
Okay.
I second it.
And Leslie, thanks for all your help with that.
You're welcome. Krisher,
Yes.
McDougall,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Pardue,
Yes.
Twomey.
Yes.
Approved. Thank you.
Okay, we're right at the end of the first hour. I think we're going to lose Alex here. I don't know what everybody else's schedule is, but we have one item left, receive a report on the e-resources usage and costs. We can either continue with that now or roll it over to the next meeting. Trustees, can you stay?
I can stay.
Okay. Don, Laura, Susan?
I can stay.
I'm okay.
You actually can. I mean, I'm in Ashley's office.
Okay. All right, let's go on with item 7 then.
So at our last meeting, our chair requested a report out on e-resource usage and costs, and in addition, the breakdown of users of our e-resources. I apologize for the attachments. I included them, even though the type is little. The reports and analytics dashboards are not meant to be printed out. And the summary views of each of these items was the best. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Yeah. So quickly, we've got the, doesn't want to share. There we go. We've got three, when we look at the electronic usage numbers, we've got three main things that we use. The Northern California Digital Library is a consortium of libraries on the Central Coast and up into the Bay Area. And that is, or commonly known as Overdrive. Many libraries all over the country use Overdrive. And we have a library consortium that we pay towards each year, a flat fee. And those funds are used to pay a staff member who I believe is based out of Santa Clara. And we might have 2 people now who do the cultivation of our library consortium collection. So we get reports every month of what they've been working on. In addition, staff has the ability to purchase additional ebook titles, just like we would if somebody submitted a hard copy suggestion. And we also keep tabs on the wait lists for holds. When we purchase titles, we can share them with other libraries. There's an advantage collection that we can all share out and use, but our patrons until we do that, our patrons have first rights of access. So if there's a long holds list and we buy an additional copy, our patrons are the first ones to get access to that. So we have purchased to date, since we began using Overdrive, probably well over 1,500 titles. So right now our holdings are just over 1,500 titles and just over 1,500 items. So the unique titles versus items, those things are a little different. That's the multiple copies, just like we would with print copies. And we have access to our current hard copy collection, just for reference, is about, it ranges between 60 and 70,000 items, depending on where we are in weeding, but it's usually 63,000. I've seen us get up higher before a big weed, but it's usually in the early, like 63,000, 62,000 items that we have physically in both of our buildings. And that's combined between the 2 buildings, not 60,000 in each building. So with Overdrive, we have access to 43,000 copies, individual items that you can check out, and the 22 of those are unique titles. So we've got multiple titles in there, so that expands our holdings. Canopy is something that is more recent. Overdrive we've been using for, I was trying to figure out and go back through their report metrics to figure out when exactly we started using it, but I think it's well over 10 years. Most of the libraries here, for as long as I've worked on the peninsula, have been using Overdrive, so this is not a new service. Canopy is, however, we've been using this now for about 2 years. It is movie and television streaming service that's been built specifically for public libraries and universities. Through that, we have access to almost 25,000 titles. Prior to closing the doors for the pandemic, one of the highest circulating things that we had physically was actually DVDs. So this helped supplement that as we were closed. The challenge with our DVD collection, like the new book collection, is browsing. Lots of people who were checking out DVDs were browsers and seeing what jumped out on the shelves. We also use Hoopla. The most popular use of Hoopla is for audiobooks, but people do have access to some television and movies, ebooks, and audiobooks. Canopy and Hoopla are structured a little bit differently than Overdrive. They are a pay-per-use basis. The average cost per use for Canopy items is $2, and we've had over 8,000 video plays this year, and the average cost per use for Hoopla items is $1.89. We do have the ability with any of these services to, of course, reduce the amount of spending. With Overdrive, that would be reducing the amount that we're spending on purchasing additional titles or additional items. And with Canopy and Hoopla, we can place caps on either the amount that we want to spend each month. We can place caps on for instance, with Hoopla, each individual item might have a different price ranging from 99 cents to $4.99 that you would pay per use. And we can put a cap on that and say, we're only going to go up to a certain amount. We'll only pay $1.99 per use. Or we can limit that per month. And we have, as Dawn pointed out, gone over budget this year because, which we would normally not have done, and I would normally have implemented one of these measures, but because this increases access to books and resources in a way that and allows people to browse online when they can't browse physically in person in our buildings. I thought that was important to keep providing that at the levels we are. I did take a look at our user reports to see how many unique users that we have, and it was included in your report. You can see that first handout or attachment, all of the—
Ashley?
Yes?
Are you showing a new screen?
I'm going to flip over.
Okay.
You can see your first attachment is the current checkouts per, that's what. I've got double screens going, sorry. I was looking at the wrong screen. So this gives you a nice breakdown of how many checkouts we have currently for each library as part of the consortium. I also included the information for each of the libraries who participate as an attachment. I do not have the ability to break down. I can tell how many unique users that we have for each of our services, and Canopy does a little breakdown on where people are in different countries, if they're in different countries using the service, but no further breakdown for locality than that in either of those. In any of our metrics, I can see unique users, but that is all. And so with Hoopla, we have 603 unique users. With Overdrive, we have just over 300 unique users. And with Canopy, which that was included in your, I'm sorry, the Canopy, our unique users were,
looks like the stock market.
It is like this, yes, it is like the stock market for, this is how people are using it. their daily activity for checking things in and out. I will find that. And I think it was included as a breakdown attachment. Does anybody have any questions as I fumble through the online versions? It usually takes me a bit of time as I go through them to find exactly what I'm looking for, because of course, everybody lays things out slightly differently. I did take a dive into looking at our current service model that we have with the curbside service over this last year as compared with the online usage. So we do have heavy online usage and a smaller group of people who are using our online resources. We've had 1,500 unique users for curbside pickup and over 7,500 pickups for this year. And I didn't, because this has been such an odd year and we saw such a dramatic doubling, maybe a little more than that in some places, of our usage, we didn't do a comparison with what it looks like during a normal year for us in terms of cost per use or the unique users for our services during the normal times or pre-pandemic times. So by my reckoning, if you look at, what we've spent to date on hard copy materials versus, how much we've been circling items, and we are behind on spending, of course, for hard copy materials because we didn't get started in earnest on ordering until late August, early September, once we were able to be back in the buildings again. Our hard copy material, the average cost of the circs for this fiscal year, based on the number of circulations we've had, is $1.88 per circ, and the e-resource items is $1.51. So there's all different kinds of ways to look at this, and I have access to all kinds of different analytics and reports, and each of them structured a little differently. So it's a challenge to compare them across the board, but I hope this is what you all were looking for when you requested that this come back before you. And I found it a helpful exercise to do more of a deep dive than I do when I put together the monthly reports and take a look at this, as well as the invoices that come in as we're going through and using these. And I will answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ashley. Any questions from the trustees?
I have one question. I was quite surprised at the number of uses that we have compared to some of the other cities looking there. It looks like our library is very heavily used when you figure the other cities have probably 2-3 times our population.
We have a lot of readers here, and I think the pandemic, at least for right now, has challenged people to find, additional ways of accessing information and some of our library content. I know anecdotally, a few of our library patrons who are converts to ebooks, but also are still checking out physical books. So we're seeing both types of a patron who might have only been into physical books before the pandemic, but is now open to ebooks, and doing both contingent on what's available faster. So.
All right.
So I guess my question would be more to Phil than Ashley to start. Does this answer some of the questions you had? I'm not, I look at all the numbers all the time for Hoopla and Canopy and Overdrive on the financial report and so on, but I have to say I'm not sure that this helped me understand directions or goodness or badness.
I think that's it. That's the absolute challenge with ebooks and with hardback books. If we're looking at reducing, I think what it is finding a balance. So for next year, if we intend to are able to open the doors to the library again, I would reduce our spending on some of the ebooks, and because while we were while I was incrementally small, we were seeing small increases in uses of our e-resources. I would not have increased it as dramatically as I did. So I would reduce it back and invest more money in our hard copy material. If we're looking at straight up cost savings, one of the things I think about all the time is, well, if we're really looking at cost savings and we're really looking at format, why don't we just wait until the paperbacks of everything comes out? Because those paperbacks are the cheapest thing that you can buy, which there's a balance with what our service levels. And I know that the model for ebooks in particular is fraught because of the way that the publishers work. So cost per use for those may be, increased depending on how they have structured that for our uses. But it's an interesting thing to consider. So what is our goal here and how do we balance that? I think the goal is being fiscally responsible, but also being responsive to patron needs and delivering information and entertainment to them through the mediums that they are used to using, that they want to use, to make those available for them. So we're not just saying, well, like for instance, again, paperback books, audiobooks are very expensive when you buy the CDs. And if one of those discs get lost, it's expensive to replace that. So it's finding that balance between, we can't be the everything library and have everything in the everything format, but we can make things available. And it's encouraging to know that we do have a strong community of readers who are using our services and sources in all of their formats.
I agree that the issue is balance, which is why I did that little box on the financial report to compare the hard copy and the electronic. And to John's point, I noticed that one of those charts had Palo Alto on there, and when I was on the board there, as soon as electronics started to become more visible, the board basically told the librarian, "You stop buying hardcover books. You'll never have another one used. Everybody's going to go electronic." And of course that didn't happen. And in fact, it looks like Palo Alto's not way out of, in any way, it sounds like they're less in proportion to their population than you might be. So I think balance is the right thing. And if that's the conclusion here, then I think we're okay. I think I go back and ask Phil. Phil, did you have any sort of absolutes as opposed to balance questions when we started this?
So, it's all about balance. Throughout my tenure on the board, it's been fairly consistent about, how do we justify having a physical library and plant in the books, because you have to be able to answer that question going forward. And part of being able to answer that question is to understand how many and why people use the electronic books going forward. And because fundamentally, I'd like to have the folks back into the library. I'd like them to be coming into the Library Foundation's special presentations and not going to the Zoom and not on other things. Is there a role for electronics? Absolutely. But we have the gathering room at the library. We're a place to interact and to have human contact in this age of separation. Probably more important now than it was when I started out almost 4 years ago on the board. And so I think that all this information is good. Right now, there's a lot of data there. As Ashley, pointed out, you actually kind of look at it a little bit to formulate your questions and try to figure out what it's telling you, because it's a lot of data with perhaps not much actionable information yet. We're on the right track of trying to answer the question of how to balance the online needs and demand with the justifying why we need to be a physical library. And that's what, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. We need to be good stewards. We need to represent our constituents who go to the library. We need to be good stewards of the city's funds they put toward the physical plant, and also good stewards for the Library Foundation, which keeps us going by buying the books. And those are the things that we have to balance. And we have to have a message, and we need to be able to justify why we are relevant. And I think that, you know, this report is a step toward trying to figure out what that message should be by understanding how our community uses the assets that we provide. Over.
We always thought that the library sale the profits would drop because people would be using more online kind of electronic devices. And we have found that when we've been able to have the sale, we've made more money every year. I think people are still, particularly older people, are really looking, even younger people are looking for that book to hold and to buy and to have. And I think that's really important. I know my husband had tried electronic books and he hated them. And so I think and I don't use them, older generation like to have that book to hold. And I think that's really important. Also, I docent for Carmel Heritage, and I often send people over to the library to look at the art collection and the building itself that are interested in, buildings and heritage and so forth. And so the actual building is also very important in our community, besides just the books that it holds.
You know, and I agree. I think that, you know, when I look at, you know, we're a very, for the most part, an affluent enclave on the California coast. And what would happen if the library totally cut off electronic books? And I suspect that most people would just buy them themselves. I think that, you know, if the wait time is too long, people will buy the books. Don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating getting rid of the ebooks at all. I just wonder how much of an impact cutting back on the ebooks would have on library patronage. Anyway, so any of the other trustees have any comments or concerns on the last report? Questions, recommendations?
So my understanding is this is just a report at this point. There's no action item for us to do. There's just something for us to think about going forward, correct?
Right, it was receive a report. Okay, with that, I'll take it that we're complete on that topic for today. Do we have any future agenda items?
Next month, I'll have a draft of the fiscal year 21-22 operating budget for all of you to review.
All right. If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ashley.
All right.